That was Paradox Pictures' latest and greatest animation, done entirely inside After Effects. The logo was done inside Photoshop, and the SFX was done inside Premiere Pro. This is actually my second tutorial for After Effects. The first one was the Justice League Flash effects, and definitely check that one out if you haven't. It'll be the same concept as this one, where I do not go step by step, so it's really an intermediate tutorial. The reason I won't be going step by step, especially for this tutorial, is because a lot of it is creative thinking, trying out colors, trying out different kind of tools, and different like masks and stuff like that, and you'll see why exactly later on in the tutorial. Now before we begin, I want to say that Paradox Pictures will now be doing one video every weekend for the tutorials or the movie analysis, the teasers, the trailers, stuff like that, and we'll be keeping up consistently, so we would appreciate it if you subscribe. Yeah, it looks pretty bad right now, but going through it one by one, we'll see that it's actually pretty straightforward, and most of it is just trial and error and what looks good to you, especially for a kind of animation that revolves around colors and different kind of cool like planets, black holes, that kind of like stars and stuff like that. I originally found out about this video by Rocket Stock that has this Nebula space pack. Now what they do is they have these elements that you can utilize for your space composition, and we'll be using that today. I'll have it in the description below. Alright, as you can see here, there's actually only 5 layers that I take for the actual logo and the clouds and the dark side, stuff like that, and even the highlights. So we'll go through the clouds first. Now the clouds are very simple. It's a simple alpha matte. Now what that means is you take a shape layer, okay, you make it white. That's very crucial. You make it white because it's an alpha matte. Okay, it uses the black and white values. And you take the shape layer, and let's say that's your logo. So for me, it was just a circle, so I put a circle. And I took the 8th fractal ambience from the Nebula pack, and I changed the colors of it to make it black and white. Because clouds are white. And yeah, so what I did was an alpha matte. All that does is, you see that? That's the actual video, right? This is if you didn't know this is easier to understand. This is the actual video right here. And as soon as I alpha matte, whatever shape layer above it, it'll just encompass that, like that. So what I found for me was good that looked like clouds was 28, but you can play with whatever. But that's how to do that. Moving on, let's see the highlight side. Now that's nothing but a white solid. Nothing but a white solid on top, just add a little bit of, the perspective of 3D lighting. For the dark side, all I've done is create a shape layer right here with the ellipse tool. If you press Q, it'll cycle through the different shapes. Shift, drag to create this kind of a thing right here, the shapes. So you fill here and you add a gradient, okay. Now, after you add the gradient, delete that. Now it should look like this right here. And I've Gaussian blurred just to add that smoothness that you can see here. If I turn it off, a bit more rough, and then you put it on multiply. The reason you put it on multiply is, let's line it back up here. And put it on something like light. You see, it's not gonna do anything. Add, oh my god. Color burn, none of these work except multiply. That adds a nice look to it. Again, I'm not going to go through step by step through all the color variations and stuff that I did. I will be talking about it, but I won't go step by step through it because it's just whatever you like. So it's kind of just trial and error for y'all. But I will be going through the lightning animations as well as the lens flare and talking about how to get those planets as well. The lightning effects that we see on the top right of the composition here, I'll solo the layer. This is the background layer of the actual lightning animation for the second half of the animation. And what I've done here is put these curves. You can copy mine, obviously, like I said, you can make your own, obviously. But I looked at this and I masked it out. I feathered this as well, just for a little bit of a variation. And I saw that these have different kind of, values over here. So I tried to play with that and got some new colors out of it. But this one is just a video art. Okay, the actual fading animation happens in these slots that you can see here. And what I've done here is I've actually made a wiggle expression, and I found the sweet spot to be 35. But you basically alt click, right? And I just undid it. But if I alt click again, you'll see this is the first thing that pops up. It should look like this for your screen. Now, if I type in a wiggle expression right here, you need to put in 2 values. And what I've done is I've put in 200, 20. So what that does is it'll fade 200 times. It'll go up and down 20 from what you've set. So from 31, it'll go up to 51 and all the way down to 11, depending on like the randomness. So it'll randomize that and it'll just keep doing that. So it'll exactly look like lightning clouds from what you see from Earth. And then if you see something like 44, so what I've done is here, you see it's now going down to 40, high 40s down to, I saw 15 in there, and that's exactly how to do it. So that'll give you the cool lightning look right here. And I did that in an entire layer. So originally I did this. It was just like this. It was quite simple. And then I went through and cut it. So I didn't make 4 layers. I just cut 1 into 4. So make sure you don't mess that up. First half of the animation, I use number 3 on the nebula. And this is the effect controls for it. Obviously, it brought down all the greens, all the blues, and a little bit of the red. I pumped it up. If I press T for opacity, you'll see 35. I've done the wiggle expression, and it is 220. So that's what I found for the sweet spot. Of course, if you like something else, that's fine. Now for this spinning nebula that you see, we've actually done 2 over here. And I've basically taken number 9, and there's actually 3 layers. Right, there's 3 layers right here. Number 9 on the thing. Add a little, made it green basically. But what I've done is if I press T and then Shift S for scale and then Shift R for rotation, you can see that my biggest one, where I have mask, by the way. Without the mask, it's actually, if I press M on the keyboard for mask and then I click none, you can see I basically scale down the whole thing. And then even if I change the opacity right now, that's how the original looked. And I basically converted that into this. So yeah, you can see what I've done is the biggest one has the lowest opacity. So I've had it fade out that way. So middle one has the, well, it has the middle one out of the opacity and scales. And then the last one, the smallest one, is the most visible with 72 opacity. And the scale is at 13%, which is the smallest. And I basically set keyframes for the rotation and have rotate. Now it does pan down, and I still had it rotate while panning down to add, you don't want it to stop because that will look awkward in the final animation. And I've basically done that twice. You can play around with the colors. I was going to change the color of the middle, which I've done for the other one. I've changed it. I've made it a little more black. Almost coming to an end here for the step-by-step stuff. I'll show you how to do this text. Now, we did work with Alpha Mattes in this tutorial, and this is another example of it. Now, you can kind of tell what's going on already. I've kind of separated the layers. This is not how it actually looks. So, I've used number 8, right? Hue and saturation again, made it all black and white. Use these curves to make a bit, I think I made it a bit brighter at points, and I made it darker at other points. And this is the font that I use. That's just normal font, nothing special about it. I got it from 1001 Fonts. I think it's commercial free, so we always look out for copyright free stuff like that. Don't want to get any copyright claims. And all I've done is I've added a alpha matte for the text. It has to be, remember, the one that you want it to matte to has to be above the layer, right? Like, it's always going to give you only one option, which is the one above it, because yeah, it assumes that you want that. So that's how it looks. Now you can see already, or it's hidden the text layer. So that's on purpose. So obviously, if you do this, it'll just, if I do that, it'll show the actual Paradox Pictures text, but we don't want to see that. We want to see the alpha matte coming to effect. And all I've done, you can, obviously you can guess what I've done, but, just a position keyframe, just have it come up. Yeah. Now I just want to talk about a little bit of what I did for the variations, but I don't want to spend too much time because, again, it will be what you want. So I use number 3 for the lightning. I told you, this is all the things. Number 1, I mess with all the colors. And that's the little thing on the side there. Look, doesn't even add too much, but it's all, the point of it is to combine so many little things and make a big thing. And then Veneri here, which I'll explain, is just a planet that I made for this other short film using that rocket stock video, and I'll have it up right now. But I basically used that and changed around the colors. So originally it looked like this. It looked like that, which again I'll put it up over here, and it's basically the same planet, just different colors. Same thing here is on top. That's the actual one. Then for these on the right, I actually did 3 of these and changed around the rotation and make it look better. Colorful thing, I love making descriptive. But yeah, I lightened it to, needed the stars on the back to pop out, so that's why I did lighten. If you put it to normal, you'll see a lot of the stars faded away. So colorful, -22, that's the big one. So I'll show you what it looks like without it. It already looks pretty good, and I basically added that, make it a bit lighter. For the left side here, in the middle, you see this. Number 7 is really good. I remember this specifically because it has its own like little stars that move around, and it's so good for added realism. Always we see stars as black and white, but the stars in this one are like red and different colors, orange and stuff. You can play around with that. And I've done a color dodge, so that's how that normally looks. So you can see the difference right here. I've turned this all the way into this. So you can see exactly why I'm saying that trial and error matters. And we went through these. We went through a little nebulas. And yep, that was it. So just definitely trial and error, play around with it. Whatever looks good, if it looks good to you, you can stop it there. Because the thing about these kind of animations is you can keep going. Right, like me and Shrey were talking about it, we had this inspiration and stuff like that. But like we can keep going. Like he'd be like, oh, this is okay. Okay, I can keep going for another week. I can fix that up. And then one of us like, oh, okay, it looks a little bit, drab, and then we keep going. So that's the problem with these animations. You have to know when to stop. So I've kind of stopped here because I like the look of this. Of course, if I keep going and I just work on it for another year, maybe I'll like it a little bit more, but who knows? Because there's so many millions of colors that you can utilize and different like settings, like different black hole somewhere, different lighting over here. So that's what I would give the advice for these kind of animations is just know when to stop. And I learned that in college as well, because same concept with 3D animation is you can just keep going until it's become the smoothest you can ever have it, but there is a place to stop. Now the final thing I'll be showing is the lens flare. So the lens flare is actually just, I've played with both levels of brightness and opacity, and the reason for that is I kind of got a weird effect not doing both of them, so it's better to just do both. What I wanted was, when the big flash was happening, I wanted to fade in, so you can see the opacity is 0 right now, and I made the opacity 100, so it comes in a couple of frames. Then this is where the big white flash happens, and then we come here. So this is at 100 opacity, 67 flare brightness, which I like. This is a nice look. And all lens flares, right, they like flicker, they fade in, fade out, or like not fully fade out, but they lower their opacity and up their opacity. Now what I could have done is use a wiggle expression that I showed earlier. But the problem with that is it'll put the wiggle expression on the entire thing, and I have to cut it up and stuff. So that was easier to do for the lightning because I didn't want to hand do all the little flickers. But since the lens flare is, long flickering instead of the short ones that you see with lightning, I've done it by hand. So the opacity is 100 here. I move on a second, and then now 84. It's a bit brighter. Move on a second. It's 73. So that way I've done that. wait a little bit, add variation, of course, for the realism. 91, 76, right? Again, at the end, 86 to 81. Yeah, that's a small one. So just a little bit of flickering for that added realism for the entire animation. So yeah, that was my tutorial for the space animation. I hope you liked it. And I just want to say, make sure to watch the other ones. There will be more coming soon, especially my latest short film, Catalyst. There's a bunch of CGI in there that I will be talking about in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.